Morning. Good. Do you want to come in for 5 minutes? Just come a little closer and we can come out. Take 3 arms, just get a sense about what drew us to this kind of particular workshop. Whether there's something in the title, or you're just curious, or whether you're kind of resonating with this kind of practice, or what the word said. Maybe what is it in your own practice that's similar or has been stimulated by the workshop or the words? If anything, is there any kind of relationship between what you're experiencing and the practice? Let's settle into what we could consider to be called a heart space. In the presence of the heart space, let's see if there's something within us that relaxes. We take our arms, let's see if we can lift the sound. It feels like the sound can come from that place. And breathe out. Okay, good. So welcome. So we've got just over an hour to just explore some things. These are very much just, I guess, things I've been exploring in my own practice, and just different facets that are coming together, that I found useful in kind of maybe feeling that there's a deeper, more richer kind of resonance to whatever kind of shape that we're taking. And there's certain kind of like almost like qualities that I've had to almost like go out to develop, or I felt like for example, part of my understanding has driven me into kind of like anatomical understanding and muscular stability and going into the muscle and really understanding like the relationship between muscles. And then within that, I'm exploring the sense of fluidity. So whatever kind of muscular component we take to a shape, it doesn't feel like it has a rigidity to it. It doesn't inhibit the potential for emotion or change or an impulse that can navigate. So within something which is structurally very secure and stable, there's something also inside which feels relatively fluid. It feels like there's almost something like an oceanic, potentially inside. And then there's the kind of art of the kind of the recognition that whenever we put something into extension, it seems to activate, like in the line of energy. As soon as we extend anything, it seems to enhance or it activates some kind of resonance within the body. And I'm particularly, I've been very much interested initially through the extremities of kind of opening the arm, but now I'm very drawn to kind of like the midline and what's happening kind of like through here initially, and then kind of like the sense of linking it to the whole body, the sense of not really just doing anything in isolation, like one limb, one arm, but more of an awareness that can relax. And it's like, how's the whole body together interacting? If I do one input, how does the whole body respond to that input? And how would the whole body realign to any particular input? So it becomes almost animalistic, the movement. If you watch an animal that moves, it doesn't seem to have one limb, it seems to have everything into kind of like a coherent connection. So I'm kind of bringing together kind of facets of that kind of movement, something thinking where we're moving to kind of like as one experience, and then there's a definite orientation to the muscular sense. We're kind of feeling what is support, what's my relationship to earth, what's grounding, what's supporting, and how is the connection of the muscle linked right through the body, right through. So any time we're touching earth, what impact does that have on the musculature right through the body? And then in particular, what's going on through the midline, how relaxed, and also is there any elongation, is there a support structure? Right? A lot of the positions require support, and a lot of the strengthening ones require a whole variety of muscles to kind of be in place. And we can kind of feel that within the muscular stability of that particular movement, am I able to continue to navigate a deep core relaxation, and then can I feel that there's different intensities in which I can hold the muscle that might have a different effect on that resonance, that its capacity to extend. And in particular, if I'm looking at the midline, one last component, I guess, is also like how to listen. I've kind of exploring that whenever I put my attention into a particular location of the body, it seems to kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like it inhibits something. So I'm exploring taking a very wide perception. It's almost like the awareness goes to the horizons. It's almost like this expanse doesn't have any particular agenda. It doesn't have any particular need. It doesn't have any particular agenda, and there's like a rest. It's like finding a place of rest where normally within the position we might have a particular agenda for the pose and might kind of, but more, I'm just going to allow attention to become quite broad. Rather than look for something, I'm going to take more of a relaxed approach. I'm just going to let everything within my system soften, and anything in me that would be trying to do something, trying to make something happen in any way, even to concentrate, even any effort within me can relax. And then as that effort relaxes, I'm just going to allow the information of the body to come. I'm just going to rather than hunt or look or explore or try to go in somewhere, I'm just going to, from a very still point, I'm just going to create the still point to not doing anything. And then within that, I'm just going to allow information to draw in it. And as the information comes in, you might start to discover that, oh yeah, that's like a tune that's not playing well in that instrument. It's producing like a chord that's slightly off. And then it's just like, there's just like a natural inner motion that can just kind of find its way. It's almost like and it seems that this is happening on the muscular level, right? Also, because we're playing around with different intensities of muscle, and it also happens on how we feel the energy is building within that particular shape, right? Because we can be in positions that dissipate us quite quickly. Right? We get tired quite quickly, or our mental energy dissipates quite quickly. And the difference might be from something like that, where the arm and limb feels phenomenally heavy, to just a slight change in expression. And then all of a sudden, there's a lift, the energy builds instantly. It's like, oh yeah, I never saw that. Most of the time I was actually getting my own way, either through my attitude, my approach, what I wanted, or just the fact that I just didn't see that that wasn't useful, or that wasn't as efficient as it could have been, that didn't stimulate. And there seems to be certain signs when the system really seems to be aligned well. It's almost like a natural absorption, like a natural still point that seems to come. A lot of energy comes, and there's like a natural still point, and it's almost like there's a relaxation of the sense of center. I feel that I'm located into a particular orientation in space, and then as the vibration really builds, it's almost like somehow that inner, where I feel that I'm looking from isn't so clear. It's just not so clear anymore, and particularly when it's kind of like matched with non-effort. So we're going to play around a little bit with maybe some movement. I think we'll try a few poses. I'd like us to kind of get into some partner stuff. I might play some music, and I might just try to get us to move fluidly, maybe to move as if everything's going to move together. And just play around with a few things, and then we'll look at some muscular orientation, and then we'll look at something around the midline, which is also linked to the bandhas. There's also the natural bandhas. I don't feel very much the pull, the locks in, but I feel that there's a natural bandha that kicks in, and as we find alignment, the bandhas just seem to arise, and then that seems to help the vibration no ends and kind of link right away from crown to earth to sky. So that's the so I don't know if that was coherent or not, but that was just a play on different facets of what I feel goes to make up a really beautiful, sweet experience within any shape, within any form. So let's come onto our mats. Let's come back onto our mats. Let's come up to stand. See if we can maybe close your eyes. Photo opportunity.
He's gone.
Okay, so let's just take a little balance, maybe let your eyes close. And nothing snapping to the legs, I just like you to feel just what feels like it's holding in the back, any heavy muscles that feel like they're holding you tight into the wrists. Just give a sense of letting this little bounce just loosen us up. Anything that we're holding in the shoulders, just a gentle little bounce. We don't need to let the shoulders lead it. Like, we're not monkeys. So we can just let the stimulation of the bounce of the legs, and we can just become more passive. And then maybe a little more passive in the head, in the neck. Right, so we're kind of we're not trying to do anything in particular, we're just letting the natural bounce of the knee. Just paying more attention to the spine, and just feel into the spine if it feels, just what does it, how does it present itself? Does it feel rigid? Does it feel locked? Does it feel like any particular area that's holding? And the impact of this balance, does it seem to, can you allow the movement itself to kind of get into the parts of the body that just doesn't seem to have as much fluidity within that particular part of the spine? You can vary the tempo, you can bounce in different ways, exploring the lower enlivening of the spine. Let's come back up, and maybe we'll just take some rotation side to side. This one a lot, it's a beautiful stimulation. Through the spine. Squeezing along, maybe move the ankle joint, and then come into the relationships, like a little balance. Just put the weight to the left leg, and let's just explore the potential of rotating and bringing the right leg into different placements in space. Let's just explore. And what I'd like us to explore here is, rather than just using the leg and the rest of the body locked, just the art of potentially bringing the body in as a fluid system. Nothing is really locking here. And the whole system is involved. The placement of the head is the counterbalance. And as you start to get a little more confident, you can start to play with more complex balances. You can really start to see, and let it be relatively smooth, relatively slow. You can just see how the whole body is moving to the challenge. You can try to spot when we lock down on a particular joint, whether a wrist joint gets tight, or whether we maybe forget about the arms, or maybe the neck goes tight, or maybe the jawline. We're just going to look at where joints seem to lock up a little bit more. The potential of staying very fluid in our motion.
Here on the left leg.
We can come to the other side now, yeah? And we can explore a whole variety of different movements. We can externally rotate, we can internally rotate. We can do that from a degree of complexity. Try to feel, again, we're including the awareness of the spine, the awareness of the arms, the wrist joints, the head, everything unlocked. Get a sense of doing everything as a unit. We don't need to be trying, we don't need to try to be too creative, like we're not trying to maybe just try to kind of be creative. We're just going to see what is a natural counterbalance. How does the body naturally respond? In a way, we're getting out of the way to more of a primal instinct into our movement, into our motion. And let's bring ourselves up from that into Tadasana. And let's look at the potential of an activation within our standing position. So let's stand in a way that we feel that we're going to stimulate an activation. So we can maybe start this by looking at our relationship to ground, floor, to earth and sky. We can look at the effects of gravity. Does it seem that any parts of the spine are experiencing a gravitational force? Do we feel that there's anything in the legs that seems to be kind of gripping us, somehow disconnecting us from a deeper earth experience? Are we locking into the kneecap? How are you into your ankle joint? Are you settled well into the center of the ankle? Have you found relationship with the 6 points of the feet, the heel bone, the calcaneus, and the instep and the outstep with the ball? We'll look at becoming very passive through the legs, almost like letting the full weight of the pelvis become heavy. Like dropping that, and then we'll just look at a subtle elongation, almost like we're imagining we're drawing longer through the inside of the leg. We can kind of visualize that upward kind of lift, and we can connect that to the arch, anatomically to the arch of the foot. And we can maybe look at the fact that when we find a really beautiful balance between heel and ball, instep and outstep, something in the arch of the foot seems to somehow enliven. We just find the right placement. There's a muscle that kind of comes around under the heel and it comes up through to around the calf muscle, and it links and connects into your inner thigh muscle, your inner adductor. So just have a trace of that, have a look at this sense of being light through the midline of the leg. It's like an upward kind of sense of light spaciousness through right through the core of the leg, and then we've got this muscular support starting to come in. It's like the muscles are drawing slightly in because you're extending. There's a lengthening of the legs, but it's very subtle. It's not jamming the kneecap back. And then we're starting to look at the connection between maybe the resonance produced at the arch of the foot and whether that resonance seems to travel up the legs. Are we able to see where a particular muscular tension might inhibit a very clean sense of flow?
Not hearing too well. Did it go off?
Okay, maybe it's a little bit closer.
It's not on.
Let's see.
Is it off?
No, went off, yeah. battery with battery.
Oh,
Try.
Okay, is that? Okay, we've got one again. Maybe I know something. So, so now I'd like to link this, the inner thigh muscle, the adductors. We can kind of look at that, and we can kind of feel into the pelvic floor, and we can feel, is there a way of starting to think about an extension through the crown that naturally activates the pelvic floor? It's like a subtle lift. The pelvic floor is like elevated, it's described as elevated doors. It closes and it goes up a floor. So you can just think about a very natural way of standing, almost being drawn now up through the top of your head, just to start to have an impact on maybe lifting the ribs slightly. The abdominals start to kind of lengthen a little, and we kind of feel some impact on the pelvic floor. It's not an independent squeeze, it's not as intentional as that. And then we can play around a little bit with the musculature of the buttocks, the glutes, and the lower abdominal system. We can think about that as a potential core support. So maybe as we lengthen the legs, there's a natural activation of glute, particularly maybe around the side of the buttocks, the glute medius, pelvic floor lifting a little, the lower abdominal system ever so gently starting to draw in, just a natural. We can let the shoulders deeply relax. And as the arms release, we're going to just check that the weight of the arm doesn't put the compressive force back into the spine. So your arms are almost kind of floating in space. We'll take the pelvis maybe like 1 millimeter forwards and backwards, and we'll just start to think about the pelvis being a bridge between the vibration of the torso and the vibration of the legs. And we're going to try to see if they talk to each other. Are we able to place the pelvis in such a position where we feel that maybe the two independent areas, the legs and the torso, almost become one experience? The pelvis becomes so neutral. Within its support, within its muscular support, we're not collapsing that. We're going to start to feel into our own midline. Is there any build of vibration tools through the midline of our own body? Is there any activation happening? Can you detect anything? Let's take all of the rigidity off of the neck. Feel that your head is almost on a spring, and deeply, deeply relax the jawline. And then see if the stimulated energy through the midline, see if you can feel that it might have an effect. It might start to talk to the head. It might almost position the head for you, or you might feel that your head wants to move a little, or it's going to...
Esophagus. Esophagus.
Could be the battery.
Okay, so maybe I talk a little louder.
Okay.
Battery might be growing.
Okay, so let's try this. And maybe we can angle the chin down like a little, just maybe a couple of %, and we can maybe elongate the back of the neck. Good. And just have a look at the positioning of your head, and does anything seem as though it starts to build inside the head? Are you able to position the head, or is the natural intuition, the instinct, is it building any kind of vibration inside the head and crown? Let's break that down a little. Let's come down into a forward bend, step back into down dog. Let's start to bring a bit of movement into the down dog, so let's become a little more, again, animal with our position. Maybe let's start to bend the knees, maybe we can start to turn and the spine a little, and let's just kind of start to play and explore. with kind of like seeing the body as a whole, seeing the body as one. Let's take away the idea of doing independent things. We're going to try to move away from what we've learned as a particular classic pose. Let's put that down for a minute. Ease down onto the knees, chest, chin. Just drop the pelvis, bring the legs together. Just lift the kneecaps slightly up. And let's find a similar kind of setup to when we were standing in Tadasana. A similar kind of leg extension. We've kind of got something around the adductor active, we've got something around the pelvic floor slightly lifted, there's a kind of softening around the sacrum. The hands are quite light, there's a nice flow between the heart and the hand. The wrist joints are nicely open. And the head doesn't feel too rigid, you're not locked into the neck. If we get the setup just right of the legs and the slight pelvic floor lift, you might start to get a lighter experience with the spine, and you might also start to feel almost the energy asking you to come more or less. It's almost like there's an ebb and flow. Sometimes it seems to be ready to take you a little higher, and then sometimes it feels as though maybe something wants to wane a little. Something eases back. And if you feel that you ease back, you can reevaluate your setup, and particularly if you see that some tissue is starting to tire, or if something's a little gripping a little bit too hard, you can reevaluate. And then try to set up just right and see if it can bring you to a natural still point. Let's press back into down dog. This one's a little more subtle, and we'll try to press down through the heel in such a way where we activate again the adductor and the pelvic floor. We're looking at the relationship around the heel to the calf to the adductor. And the pelvic floor slightly lifting, and we'll see if we can find that. Not because we're doing it independently, but just a natural way of extension through the torso and how we're extending the legs. We'll take off neck, throat and jawline rigidity. We'll look at the potential building vibration within the spine, and we'll let the head find its way perfectly. It seems as though we can stimulate somehow inside the head and crown. Let's walk our way up to standing forward bend. Put a little bend into the knees, press through the feet, we'll come around and up. Let's open through the fingers, let's take a little back bend. Let's go nowhere near our edge, let's go nowhere near our big stretch. But let's just start to look at the principle of elongation to activate. So let's look at the full integration of the body, so we're not leaving out the palms, we're not leaving out the places between the knuckles, the forearm, the bicep, tricep through to the lats. We can feel that we're activating the rib cage, serratus interior, the muscles that come around your rib cage are starting to become activated. These link down into your abdominal muscles, down into your psoas, pelvic floor, inner adductors, down to your calf, into earth. You've got this muscular setup where everything is starting to provide this sense of support. I'd like to start to notice what in you is building and what in you seems to be dissipating. What's tiring? When is the tissue becoming tugged? And is it possible that that tissue that's being tugged in a way that doesn't feel useful could find a slightly different expression? And you can do that by coming off a second, a millimeter, and then coming back in. You can somehow come into that tissue relationship in a slightly different way that doesn't have the same quality of tug. Release the arms around to the side. Let's bring the right arm up and the forearm alongside the forehead, And we can maybe just let the fingertips come into the base of the skull, and we'll let the weight of the arm take the left ear to the left shoulder, and then we'll just let ourselves move down towards a stretch, as if we're curling the spine down to the left. Try to let the full weight, the full support of the forearm be alongside the head, so you've got full contact there. And we're just going to let gravity take the breath. We're going to let our left arm completely relax and hang in the joint, and we're making like a C shape with the spine. We're just going to do this, we're just doing this to stimulate spinal energy. You can take this slowly back up. Maybe the awareness base of the spine, just watch how we stack up. Let the arm relax down. Just take the left forearm across the side of the head, fingertips into the base of the skull. Right ear, right shoulder. So we're coming into a relationship with 7 cervical vertebrae. See how many of them you're able to connect to. And then sequentially we start to curl down. The right arm is already heavy, and the weight of the arm and the head combined with gravitational breathing, natural impulse breath, natural out breath is starting to take us to the side. Start to navigate your attention to space. Float back up. Just bring the hands around the back of the body, heel of the hands into the low back, fingers pressed over the buttocks. And we'll take the head a little back. If it's going to make you dizzy, don't take it all the way back. If you're okay with this, you can drop it back. And then with a continual breath, just roll back as far as you're feeling comfortable with. We're not taking it so much as a stretch dynamic, right? We're just taking it as a spinal stimulation. You try to keep the breath coherent. Just bring that up. Let's now tuck the chin and start to roll the spine down. Let's use gravity. Let's connect breath, and then slowly let's let one vertebra at a time be taken down toward the earth. Let's allow the arms to hang. Let's start to any points of tension within the joints of the upper body as you start to spot them. As you start to come into muscular stretch, we'll put a little kink into the knee just so we can continue to extend down into the base of the spine. And we'll slowly press ourselves through the feet. It'll take about 8-9 breaths to come up. As you come into relationship to Tadasana, as you come into relationship to your standing position, let's start to initially orientate ourselves to the muscular connection, the way the placement of the feet, the placement of the pelvis, the muscular support of the legs, and slight activity but light through the centre of the legs. Subtle through the pelvic floor, naturally through the lift of the crown, the way that the ribs are elongating, and the subtle drawing in of the abdominal system. These are not aggressive movements, these are not big movements. And then imagery of broadening the chest and back. You can use imagery to get a sense of widening. Let's explore moving the attention edge to the horizon. So let's get a sense of relaxing our sense of centre. And just recognizing that awareness can kind of, I don't want to say go out, but you can kind of expand attention or recognize that awareness isn't bound by a particular edge. And we can feel that it becomes more of a listening than a doing, and even the listening doesn't feel like it has a lot of energy behind it. It's not like you're not trying to listen, where there's like a natural awareness in a very restful state, but very broad with other horizons. And as the will center starts to relax, there's almost like a dissolution of the sense of self in a way, or our familiar sense of our core, or where we feel we're located in space. Because we're not doing anything, we're not driving any particular direction. And then through the complete relaxation of the sense of center, you might feel that the energy within you starts to build very fast. The building of that vibration might prompt a deeper subtleness of your alignment of the physical body. So more of an intuitive, subtle readjustments might come in, but we're not really losing sight of the space. We're not losing sight of the expanse. We're not looking into any particular joint in particular, perhaps. Something in the attention goes to whatever interests it, and we're not going to shut down that natural function. There's something in the attention that seems to just become interested in a particular feeling or a particular sensation, and that dynamic is happening within the wider field of rest. Let's bring our arms back around and up. Let's come into a relationship with sky and earth. Let's feel this kind of like extension through sky and the connection through the feet. Let's feel the stimulation of the arch of the foot, the muscular setup through the calf, through the adductor, up through the pelvic floor, and wrapping around through your abdominal system, up to the side of your rib cage, around to your upper back muscles, trapezius and rhomboids, extending through your fingertips into your hand. Notice if the energy, the vibration here is building or waning, the expression of that particular tissue through what we're allowing ourselves to channel, to become available to. We'll bring the arms out to the side. We'll see if we can not collapse the ribcage because we've set up a little abdominal Uddiyana Bandha. The hands can come gently onto the hips. And we'll see if we can not lose that setup as we squat back into like a half little chair. We've got this is quite a complex movement now because we've taken a forward hinge and the potential of how the spine is talking with the pelvis and the relationship to your legs. The pelvic floor, did it drop the muscular integrity? Did it completely collapse? And can you reposition the pelvis in such a way that the pelvic floor feels like optimum again? And I'd like to try to look at anything within the spine or the muscles around the spine that feel as though they're being held. Does anything within you feel, in your upper body in particular? And it's possible that we can relax certain places that are feeling gripped without collapsing the muscular support of the abdominal pelvic floor network, without collapsing that. There's a deeper releases that can take place of rigidity within the tissue of the back. We're taking off the neck tension, letting the energy of the spine position the head, because we want the connection of the torso to the head in a way that really builds the energy into the head centers. We can press through the feet, stand, we'll bring our arms again around and up. We'll hold the left wrist. We'll take an extension. We'll just use the right arm to extend the left arm, and I'm going to pay again attention to the pelvic floor. The potential to have it gently together and up. You Uddiyana Bandha, the natural abdominal lift is happening, and we'll lean to the right. there'll be a whole complex array of tissues which are probably firing a little bit too more than they necessarily need to be. So let's relax the tissues that are really obvious to you in order to experience more space within that particular shape. Attention is still kind of at the horizons. We haven't kind of lost the fact that there's a lot of space within our experience, and we're looking at the relationship of how we're here and the quality of the resonance that it's producing. We can come back up, we can hold the other wrist, we can elongate. I don't want it to be all about the resonance, because the resonance for me is like a halfway house. It's like something that refines and refines and refines, and then there's a point where I'm not really that interested in the resonance anymore. I would rather access a deeper rest. Let the arm relax, let's come down, forward bend, left leg back into lunge. Right to left hand dog. Bring ourselves into a plank. Let's try to find some of the complexities of this into something that requires more muscular activity. So now we can consider that when we were in Tadasana, we were lengthening the legs, we could take a similar setup to the hands. The 10 knuckle bases are nicely grounded. The centre of the palm is a chakra. And you can enliven the centre of the hand and feel that you're drawing a lightness up into the inside of your arm. The back is kind of broadening. You've got a little muscular activity of the upper back. If the trapezius, and the rhomboids, they want to be a little active. The abdominal system is slightly active. The heels are pressing slightly back. The pelvic floor is lifting slightly. And then you can either put the rib cage a little down or up to really enhance the quality of the resonance. We can really potentially block or allow it to flow here according to how you can see in your body what's happening. If you want to take this back into down dog because it's getting a bit strong, you can do it. If you want to drop to a stronger expression, we'll take maybe 4 or 5 breaths down in Chaturanga, and we'll see if we don't lose the vision of the depth of that into something which requires more muscular effort. Press back up into plank and back up into down dog. Let's not go too fast into our edge. Let's just give it pause before you go too deep, and just let the energy of that last shape kind of become noticed. And maybe it's going to stimulate natural motion or the intuitive, the way to move that energy around the body. It might be intuitively asking for a particular way of letting it move through the body. These very subtle movements. Let's bring ourselves down to knees, chest, chin. Just pause here and take a complete and utter relaxation of the pelvic floor. Just completely open and soften sphincter, genital and pelvic floor muscles. And let's connect to a sense of fluidity of the sacrum, almost like it's surrounded by a sack of fluid. And we're giving the muscular softening to allow the sacrum to have that kind of oceanic experience. As we drop the pelvis down and bring the spinal muscles into extension, we can look at the activation of the legs and pelvic floor. It happens very fast. So you watch the little transition as you drop, as you extend, and as you prepare for Bhujangasana without coming up. Navigate the setup of the leg. The pelvic floor is a little lifted, maybe the pubic abdomen has a little activity. If you feel that the flow isn't very harmonious between the heart and the palm, reevaluate the scapula and the wrist placement. I haven't even taken the head back yet, and the energy really seems to build. We're holding the legs in just the right level of intensity. And you may just want to stay here, or you may be prompted to roll back, or you may be prompted to do less. So follow what you feel that you're guided by. If anything in you is tiring, reevaluate. Hold the toes pressing to down dog. Just let the head drop down a moment, let it just kind of like hang. And then look at the experience of probably feeling the tissue and muscle of the neck. And then very slowly draw the head slowly upwards until the intensity of that muscle kind of relaxes and you feel that you align the head perfectly well. And it doesn't feel like it's stuck in that position. You place it somewhere, but there's also continued room for renegotiation. If your definitive sense of centre has reformed itself back into the centre of your experience, let's just remember the horizons and just feel the body as if we are not inside the body, but as if the body is inside us. And we're feeling it as a whole, not as independent components. We can step the left leg through into lunge. Step the back leg forwards. Draw the arms around that. We'll come into prayer, we'll put a little kink into the knee and we'll just settle into a bent knee to Tadasana with palms at the breastbone. Try to set up within the pelvis the potential for the pelvis now to be oceanic. The potential for the pelvis to almost have the potential to rock like a pendulum, like mutate and counter-mutate. And we're just taking off the gripping that might inhibit certain forces in you. We're showing you fluidity. And as the pelvic muscles relax and as the pelvic floor relaxes, and we're trying to connect to the potential motion. We're not making the movement happen. But we're relaxing the muscles and becoming aware enough of the pelvic area to feel if there's a certain prompt. Anything that happens within the pelvis, I'd like you to consider that it's directly linked to the spine. So rather than the spine remaining rigid, any shift within the pelvic bowl has a natural reposition of the entire spinal column. They're talking as one unit, as one expression. You may hit a point where you just don't want to explore anymore. The alignment has been found, the vibration has gone optimum, and there's like an absorption or a dissolution or some kind of still point. Just very slowly consider opening the hands out like a book, just feeling the space between the palms in front of the heart center as we very gently draw the arms open. We'll continue to feel the tangible space between the palm and in front of the heart chakra as we draw the arms slowly out and fully extended to the sides. you can try different combinations of pressing out through the little finger, through the front of the arm, maybe even pulling the deltoid slightly in toward the midline as you press out through the fingertips. You can find a different relationship to the muscle, the way they talk to each other, in order to find a real sense of strength and lightness. We'll start to build the muscular support of glute, buttock, and lower abdominal pelvic abdomen. We're going to hinge forward, so let's set up now the muscular component of hinging into a half forward, half chair pose. Look at the relationship between your big heavy duty back muscles, your quad, the big QL, and the relationship between that and your abdominal system, and how does it feel as though it's working? Something overworking? Have you found the right balance? Have you locked into the kneecap? Are you nicely supporting through the quad, through the glute, through the lower? And is the pelvic floor still as active? And now look at the softening and the vibration through the midline. If it gets a little much for you, you want to bring your arms down, do that, or bring them to the hips. If you want to take it a little deeper, shift the weight onto the left leg. And let's consider bringing more potential muscle strength and power at a more complex shape by bringing the right knee up. And you can sit that back as much as you feel you want to. Let's take a much more potent muscular expression to this, but let's try not to sacrifice this refined resonance, whilst at the same time we're taking a real muscular orientation. Take the leg gently down, press slowly up. If you feel that the energy's got a little high, just reconnect down to feet, floor. Just put a little kink into the knees. This time we'll take the palms facing forwards and just a little off the body, just a 5-10%. And just play around with the shoulder joint in such a way that you feel that you bring the torso and the arms into one expression. It doesn't feel that your arms are extended, but actually nothing is going on through the torso. We're going to feel that we're setting up the muscular start of a midline extension. Maybe the ribs are slightly elevated. Maybe the abdominal system is slightly elevated. The joints producing the shoulder joint like a bridge. Relaxed, open, spacious, connecting the vibration of the arm through the torso. And then if you have a very definitive sense of center, if you feel, yes, my sense of self is very well formed, take your attention to it and find it. Where is your actual sense of center? Is it a sensation in your body that you derive a sense of me from? Is it a particular thought? Is it a memory? Is it a feeling? Where are you getting your sense of center from? And are you looking from there? Let's allow the arms to float up. Let's sit back a little into the half chair. Let's set up the muscular support of pelvic floor, glute, lower abdominal system. And now let's come into a relationship here with the heart space. Let's come into a relationship to the heart space. Let's put the energy of tenderness and love into our deep exploration of where we're looking from. Let's put the tenderness, the love, into this shape. If you want to take the muscular component deeper, let's shift the weight, let's bring the opposite knee up. If you want to sit back a little, sit back a little. You can take it as much as you want. You can also extend the leg and squat right back. You can almost take it all the way down to balance. gently press up through the leg, plant the foot. Let's draw this gently down onto our knees and come to a little rested child. Let's allow the will centre to relax. Let's give ourselves, in a way, nothing to look for. Let's just really feel that there's nothing to do, there's nothing to focus on, there's nothing that we're really needing to. And let's let the mind do whatever it wants, right? Just remember, let's just let the mind do whatever it wants to do. Right? We're not going to get on its case. There's nothing that we should be looking for, there's nothing that we should be learning, there's nothing that we're doing wrong. Let's just let ourselves rest and let the mind do whatever it wants to do. Put an invitation to the body to experience maybe a deeper sense of rest. Is it possible that somehow the body can experience a deeper sense of rest here? Let's allow the chin to tuck, and maybe we'll take 2 or 3 breaths to roll ourselves slowly out. Just curl the toes, bring ourselves into a gentle little squat. We're going to explore a crow pose, Kakasana, but if you don't want that for now, you can just take an option of settling down, and if the heel doesn't come down, you're welcome to put it as a blanket underneath the heel if you will. I'd like you to think about this kind of this sense of this gentle midline elongation into a rest position, or to find the same thing as the Kakasana setup. So we're just going to come to a setup, and then we're going to look at how the spine's positioned, pelvic floor, the abdominals, the upper back, serratus anterior, the muscle support. And simultaneously, even in just the preparation, the capacity to build the vibration, just in the setup. If any area of the wrist is a bit tugged, we're going to reevaluate, we're going to take the time to really let a phenomenal level of comfort come in here. We're noticing the impact on the inner vibration. It's not about the pose, right? We're not taking it about, it's not really about the posture here. We're looking at the different internal qualities as we explore the different subtleties of our approach. If you want to go ahead and you move into water balance, you're welcome to let the feet lift. We're not going to try to sacrifice too much, but if you feel that one of your knees can come off, if you feel that you're strong here, you can take one like that, you can explore. Good. I'm trying to combine the sense of not losing some of the subtle with some of the things that require a little more strength. Let's come back in, settle down into the heel. And then we'll come down into cross-legged. Put the fingertips either side of the knee, just as a gentle placement, just as somewhere to put the arms for a moment. And just think about a very subtle Uddiyana Bandha. Almost like draw the abdomen in 5% of what it can do. And then let that relax. Pull out again, about 5% of what the abdominal system can do, and then relax. And then try to find a similar experience of how the Uddiyana Bandha happens, but this time through an extension, through the release of the pelvis down and a subtle lift through the crown, like you can imagine almost. And a similar experience comes to the abdomen. And I'd like you to kind of rock back ever so slowly forwards onto your sit bone until you feel that you're activating the pelvic floor vibrationally and a little muscularly. A very subtle lift of the sternum, the breastbone. And I'd like you to feel there's a connective tissue connection between the pelvic floor and the center of the chest. Like through lifting the breastbone, the sternum, you can feel the relationship down to the pelvic floor. And take a wrist behind the back. We'll prepare for Yoga Mudra. Let the thumb and first finger of one hand or both hands come together as you're taking the wrist. Take off all the neck and shoulder rigidity. Let the head feel like it's on a helium cloud. And let the head find its placement. If there's any gripping of the hip joint, try to let that relax. So the sit bone has the predominant releasing downward weight. You've still got the subtle midline activity, jaw soft. You see what the energy is kind of speaking to you here. For me, it feels very devotional somehow, I don't know why. And then when you feel ready, we'll start to come forward and we'll just consider to feel what's happening as we come down, nothing particular to look for. We're going to take it so easy, it's not going to be a rest, and we're not going to push through something, we're going to choose the path of least resistance in a way. And we're just going to really rest, we're really not working into a stretch here. In this position, I'd like to explore the possibility I'm going to give myself full permission to be myself. Right, I'm going to, maybe just for a moment, entertain the idea that I don't have to change in any way. Just for a moment, I'm just going to entertain, for one moment, I'm going to entertain the idea that I can just allow myself to be myself. Like fully. Just to see what that feels like. And as attention comes into relationship to the experience of the body, which is probably felt through a sensation, we're going to feel it like a love affair, like we're starting a love affair with. form in which the divine is flowing throughout in what we call our body. Very slowly we'll lift the head initially and then we'll pause. Just as the neck and the spine seem to talk with each other into an alignment, we'll pause a second. We'll then come up a little more and then we'll pause when the spine aligns, but we're still hinging forwards. We just pay particular attention to the breath rhythm, but let it be completely uncontrolled. Just see what the breath naturally feels to do here. And continue the rest of the way up. And refine the quality when your pelvis truly arrives into center. And then we'll take Chin Mudra, our hands onto our knees. Let's find ourselves now beyond form. Let's find ourselves when we're not looking at ourselves as a sensation, or as a particular structure of thought. And we'll let the energy of that somehow be connected to the heart center. We'll be vigilant into the next thought formations and whether our identity completely immerses and meshes with those next arising momentums within us. We'll draw the palms gently to prayer. We'll allow the sense of stillness to be completely uncontrived. So any effort coming in to do something, you can just spot it as an effort to control. And just see what it's like to rest. Beautiful. And when if you're ready, you can just soften your attention and take a breath. Okay, beautiful. So I think it's time that we have to finish now.